of choice. So that always is going to be an obstacle that you have to overcome. But we're going straight into the draft. We've jumped through the bans, and we're already into second and third pick here for Disguised.
Okay, a few things to talk about early on. I think Wukong and Jarvan are the two strongest junglers that we have on this patch. The fact that we have one being picked up by SolidSnake, Wukong was of course banned. That's being traded over to get Orianna, another that's viewed as very strong on this patch. So Darkwings is going to be piloting that one in the mid lane, where we see an Ambessa and a Jarvan. And unlike yesterday, where I was really hoping to see a Poppy or combo, we're going to finally get it today from Disguise. That was not something that the Tigres with Montaz was willing to play. Definitely going to be something that eXyu gets his hands on immediately, as it's looking like a pretty happy game for Poppy, with a lot of dashes showing as both top sides have been locked in. Raafaa, and early on for Disguised, I mean, that Renekton, we'll see if he can get rolling early and function in these lane swaps, because Renekton really wants to have that 1v1 matchup. He really struggles levels 1 through 3 in a swap. You want to get past 3 where you can start to, win most of your lanes in the top lane. So do think it's pretty important that Disguise tries to find that 1v1. We'll see what ADs look like in their camp as we get our first look at Disguise in the same room up there in Toronto, the Shopify Rebellion's facility. Again, shout outs to them. Disguise definitely wanted to make sure that on the broadcast they said thanks to their league partner who have helped them prep and helped Luminosity Gaming prep as well. It's been a good boot camp for both teams.
Yeah. We haven't seen any marksman bans so far this entire draft. As I say that, Ezreal gets taken off the table, as both Estral and Disguise were trying to limit the support pool on what Huhi or Winsome could look towards. Rakan, another support ban, hits the deck, and for Estral, they have a chance to lock in their AD carry of choice. The pool is wide open for the taking.
Yeah, no Ezreal for Rahel. I will say, diving in, I think Rahel could and should be the best player in this tournament. And it's kind of a fun matchup against Ghost, because there is overlap between both these players with DK. When Ghost was there in 21, when they lost World Finals, that was Rahel's first year with the Challengers team, where he played with the likes of Thanatos, with the likes of Lucid, and they had a lot of success in the LCK Challengers League. So kind of fun, Rahel technically going up against the person that, he was playing behind with his time at Damwon. As Ghost had a very good Kaisa game in the first series against Conviction, and now going to have to play it into the Lucian Braum being rocked by Rahel and Huhi. So not a lot of main engage coming out from Disguise, but their ability to hold the line with the Braum, the Renekton, and Lucian, proc those winners by it should be pretty good.
And dare I say, Matt, I think DSG are a little bit more all in on the mid-game spike here. Obviously, if Darkwings goes for the scaling Orianna build with the Roa and the Seraphs, then you'll still have some late game insurance there. But DSG really trying to and blow this game wide open around that second, maybe third dragon mark, around when the Otacon does spawn. We'll have to see if Estral can have enough of that early agency between this Jarvan, maybe with this Aurora, to be that bridge so that Ghost can get to that 3-item mark where he really comes online.
Yeah, I think that for Disguised, they win the side lanes pretty hard. Mid is going to be the one where you got to play a little bit of defense with the Poppy and the Orianna. But Poppy can get goofy with a few of these early levels because her fight at level 3, level 2 is so strong. So curious to see if eXyu uses either of the priorities that he should have in those side lanes to find an invade onto this Jarvan and set up a nice map for Disguise. I think specifically, especially with the Lucian Braum, looking to maybe get into Jarvan's camps on the bot side if we get standard lanes is good. On the flip side for Estral, I think they're pretty motivated actually to swap. Kaisa Alistar, for me, is not a lane that you're opting into playing against Lucian Braum if you're not looking to send that Kaisa into a solo lane. So personally, I'm expecting to see Kaisa top at the start of this game. We'll see if Disguise can read it. I would keep the Lucian Braum together for sure. I think there's a lot more power in that. So Renekton may be relegated to play that melee versus range matchup where Kaisa with the D-Blade is very strong very early.
Well, Castle is no stranger to playing weak side in his career during the tier 1 stint between both Immortals as well as Disguised, although he has been given some carry reins and some attention in a few games. We'll see if Disguised are able to propel up Rahel on this Lucian and give him that snowball necessary to take the game 1 victory, or if Estral will be able to hold the line, endure the storm in this mid game that DSG are going to be so strong in. and see if they can get Ghost to that 3-item point where Kaisa can just really take over a game.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I do think that Estral, it's kind of funny they have the scaling in the Ambessa and the Kaisa, whereas a lot of the scaling for Disguise is going to be on Darkwings in that mid lane with the Orianna. So first look at this, guys, going into this first map, Raafaa. I know that from talking with Coach Ido, I did something fun yesterday with Coach Deos. You know, what's your wish list for things that you want to see with your first team hopping on the Rift where you haven't seen the stage for a while? And it's funny, they kind of said similar stuff. It said tempo, very important, fights with intention, holding your ground or engaging depending on what the comp needs, and having fun. Something that Ido said, I very much agree with. They are the first team that's playing in promotion relegation from the Pro League, from the LTA North. So they're really here to set the tone to see if that year of practice within the LTA North is a big boon to help overcome the tier 2 teams. It should be. Ido recognizes that. It's a huge advantage to compete with those teams throughout the year. We'll see how Disguise looks as their first look at defending their spot, hopping onto the Rift against Estral.
And for the side of Estral, as we've said before, this was a team constructed to promote, assembling some of the best individuals that you could get your hands on, as we will now see how well they can endure and test against the current defending team for the Tier 1 region. It is Disguise taking on Estral Esports in this best of 5. Game 1 starts right now.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
Yeah, early on, potential swap into Castle. We Summit scouting out, see if they catch Castle. Again, I think it makes a lot of sense to send Ghost into that solo lane here. Getting away from that Lucian Braum matchup, I think, is important early on. The Winter's Bite with the Lucian and, you know, Kaisa Alistar being lower ranged, it can make for a rather difficult lane phase. So we'll see if Rahel is going to be able to find that one. But you can see, yeah, that's a base coming out from Summit, and I think Ghost is going to make his way up here. So no surprise here with the swap. I think this guy's, they should have expected this one. And again, I think keeping Lucian Braum together is the right call.
Yeah. So check one on terms of communication for Estral. Already having a good understanding of how you want to play out the first 5-10 minutes of the game, or at least based on the lane allocation to start off this game. One, just making sure that Ghost is able to get that safe lane away from the Lucian and the Braum. The question that we're going to have to answer and find out later on is how well can they adapt on the fly to the questions that DSG are going to pose to them, especially when it comes to those mid-game objectives. Third Dragon and Otacon tends to get really dicey for Estral based on what we've seen from their time in the LRN playoffs as well as against Conviction Esports.
Yeah, we definitely, watching the finals against the Tigres, definitely saw Estral make a couple of mistakes there. That definitely helped the Tigres find that 3-0 victory to get that first seed and that guaranteed second life. Estral, of course, had to go earn theirs against Conviction earlier on. And early on for this game, again, I don't expect too much action early on. I am curious to see if eXyu skips any camps here. I think that's the next option I'm looking for, as the Poppy does have the option to get up in the face of the Jarvan with the strong level 3 and the help of the bot lane, as, of course, that Lucian Braum, especially playing to the Ambessa, has push early.
Between both of these junglers here, Matt, we didn't get a chance to touch on it now. eXyu and SolidSnake. Both of these junglers have the opportunity to get a little feisty in these lanes and try and create some volatile action. I think it's for Estral's case, SolidSnake just needs to play defensive or at least try to alleviate pressure. And eXyu, all he needs to do is, right now, he's got some good lane setups outside of course, Castle going into Kaisa on the top side of the map. If eXyu can just ensure that Rahel and Huhi are smashing lane and prop that up even further, that can allow DSG to really snowball into that mid game.
Yeah, no, I mean, so far, I know that Castle, playing melee into ranged, Renekton weak in the first 2 levels. You really need level 3 to be fully effective on the Croc. He's going to be okay. Like, the consequence of this swap, it's always good to get Kaisa that solo XP because her levels are a part of the breakpoints to get to your evolved abilities, but you're sacrificing Ambessa's experience for that. And I think Ambessa's experience, for me, is far more important in that Renekton matchup, because if Renekton is able to get going, it's quite good. Speaking of going...
Yep, eXyu and Huhi, the fact that Huhi spotted out SolidSnake early as, eXyu was trying to flash, and interrupt the EQ. But now they're able to at least translate over to Summit, and the steadfast presence saved for Summit's own escape. That's first blood going over to Disguised.
Summit has a TP and Castle has been zoned off the wave. Castle is going to be able to TP back and get some, but will lose some creeps up top. So both top laners suffering, but Castle definitely not nearly as much as Summit, who did lose his flash. Will use that TP now as Castle does make his way up top too. So looking like we're signing up to swap lanes a little bit more. That does mean that Disguise might be able to look at an early dragon spawning here. If eXyu is able to get back in time, because they're going to have their bot lane bot. So would like to see that from them before the grub spawn, if they could sneak that in while they have that advantage in the lanes.
Yeah, the fact that eXyu is lightly pathing to what could be maybe Crab, full topside camps, and then we'll have enough time to then hit Dragon around that spawn timer. Winsome, though, making a play on the Castle, setting up for a 3-man against this Croc. And Castle does have Flash, but I don't think he's going to use it because he already knows that he's going down with the ship. Maybe trying... Oh, no way. He gets out of that live, and... I feel like that was a big blunder from Estral. That should have been a kill, or at least a flash burn.
I'm very shocked that Snake did not go for a longer flag and drag to predict at least the first E. I mean, he doesn't have flash to follow the second, but that looked goofy on our screen, and I'm going to call it goofy at home too. I think that they're going to think that one was a missed opportunity potentially, as Castle gets away with a bit of murder in the top side. And yeah, he still has the 1v2 going on, but the damage is being dealt as Rahel is going to force Summit back, and this wave is where it's at. And again, if Ambessa's out of the game, Renekton can really push Ambessa around later on. So this early presence for Disguise, and I think the better managing of the swaps very much paid off for them as Estral down pretty big early.
Oh, Darkwings flash auto attack following Cody secures the second kill of the game for Disguise. Already game one showing up big for the Toast team.
Solo Polo for Darkwings. It's so fun to see him be successful at the tier 1 level, because the first split that we casted NACL, Raafaa, we watched Darkwings and eXyu play for Dignitas. And it was an early exit for Darkwings because he played pretty decent as a rookie, as they were a middle of the pack team. He ended up being in the Proving Ground system. The only player he qualified for Proving Grounds 4 different splits on 4 different teams. And I know behind the scenes with Darkwings, it has always been a question of his mechanics. The hands were just not as good as some of the other options in the mid lane, but he was always able to play a boatload of champions. I know that the one split in 41 unique games, he played 21 unique champions. And to see him bring that to Fearless and some of the consistency of his mage play, it's been a great growth arc for a player that I never truly believed would be successful at a tier 1 level. But Isaac Darkwings has been proving me wrong, and it's been fun to see.
Mr. Isaac, man. When we first heard that he was going to be the option for Disguise going into split 3, a lot of us were optimistic but concerned, because we wanted to see Darkwings do his best in the tier 1 level, but we knew that his work would be cut out for him. But the fact that he was part of that roster that was able to take Cloud9 to a full 5-game series, holding his own against Loki, who was considered Rookie of the Year for LTA, that is some pretty impressive stuff. However, Darkwings barely survives the 2-man gank from Winsome.
Survived the caster curse. More impressive stuff from Darkwings as he's able to sneak his way out of that one. Orianna always been a nice pick for him. Again, with Darkwings, I think that he plays every class of mid laner pretty well. I've seen him play Karma well. I've seen him play Aatrox very well. Part of where he snagged his name from, I believe, too. So, yeah, definitely fun to see Darkwings kind of be that flexible, malleable piece that has really fit in well with this Disguise squad. And I think, you know, Rahel for me was a huge difference maker, just because I consider Rahel, I mean, he's not a world-class AD. He's a very good AD, though. I mean, he won LCK Challengers League with Thanatos and Lucid. He competed in EU, where he looked better than just fine. For Disguise to pick him up, that's definitely a piece that I've talked to other people around the LTA North and GMs being like, yeah, it's pretty incredible. They got a player like Rahel playing in relegation, right? We expect him to be the best player in this tournament. But, yeah, I think it really speaks to Disguise that they keep the core that struggled a lot. They make a couple of changes between the staff and the players, and they really feel like they've been a reinvigorated team where the energy's been good. Definitely something that Coach Ido has talked a lot about well, making sure the vibes are good with this team, because this is a team that always legitimately got along with each other behind the scenes, even through the struggles they had in the LTA North. So I think that's really important when you're going to play these very stressful, intense matches playing for your LTA North life. And to see this guys get off to a hot start like this, off some good individual play, that's a good start.
Disguise did not go for the first dragon of the game, but they were able to take many strengths and advantages in trade for it, including the first and only round of grubs, all three of them. Estral managed to pick up that first dragon for themselves here. Not sure if Estral will be able to play towards a Drake stack win condition, as first dragon was fairly late, and with Disguise having a pretty decent control and grasp on the state of the map at the moment, Estral is going to have their work cut out for them. The next thing I'm looking towards, though, Matt, is since we don't have an objective play for another 4 or 5 minutes here at the very earliest, Disguise, they're going to be coming up on first item spike soon, and I really want them to start pushing this Lucian lead forward, because so far, Rahel's been having a quiet game. He's been farming well, but because Ghost was laning against Castle's Renekton, he's also even on farm with him.
Yeah, I actually think that the end of the swap there for Disguise, while we were kind of putzing about and talking about how they got here, was not the best. We now see Summit up in XP and Ghost as well. So I'm not sure what happened with all the experience there, but in the back half of the swap, it is eXyu that has the lead. Everyone else will live behind as Darkwings doesn't have flash.
Yep, and that's an easy play for SolidSnake just to commit the Flash Cataclysm right on top of the mid laner for Disguise. eXyu flashing away from the Headbutt Pulverized combo. Throws out the Mad Monkey emote. And Estral will at least be able to burn a Summoner Spell off of the jungler.
Yeah, that's a good get for them, as this matchup top, I am a little bit concerned, because once Renekton gets behind in this matchup, there's really not much getting back into it against the Ambessa. Just her spikes with the Eclipse, the Shojin, it's just too good for Renekton to really deal with. And I'm a little bit concerned the fact that Summit has this kind of lead. We did see Estral be able to execute the Kaisa Ambessa comp quite well in their win against Conviction. And this is a game where the lead that Estral has is going to be a little bit concerning here, as Huhi's making his way up. But I think Castle's a little bit too low. They're just going to try and get him a reset and get that TP back, where he's going to be able to fight with a big item advantage. As I lied, because the swap's going to continue with the Summit. I got tunneled. They're going to try and dive him. Winsome's here to defend, and I am not sure if they can take him down.
Yeah. I think it's just a good read from Winsome, being able to protect Summit on the wave push here as DSG. If it was just a 3v1, you imagine that should have been a play that they can definitely execute on, or at least burn a Summoner Spell from Summit. Cody being able to get away from farm here as Castle looks for the solo kill onto Ghost. No cleanse, no flash available, no flash from Castle either, but he's got enough movement speed to be able to lock him down.
Big pickup for Castle, a player in the Pro League where I think everyone at home can see this guy has the individual skill. It's just about putting together good games from start to finish, not getting caught out in a couple of the side lanes. But Castle individually, him able to get in the side lane against Ghost. And again, he just got that buy from the base that was forced in the top side. He used that against Ghost, who was sitting on components, but just got a full Kraken Slayer. That's good recognition of having the item advantage and pushing at the right time when everyone just showed top. Well played from Castle.
Yep. Now DSG starting to continuously find small advantages here, seeing if they can press it forward, as Winsome does pop the ultimate in exchange for Huhi's Glacial Fissure. Rahel not going to burn any other spells on top of it, knowing that there's not a continued play that can be made here. Just trying to push their advantage as much as possible. We're still a couple minutes away from another dragon spawning, or at least the Rift Herald being shown on Summoner's Rift here. Curious to see what eXyu decides to do with that time remaining.
Rahel's still in really good shape. As with the Essence Reaver and the Lucian, you can see he's piloting that one pretty aggressively. Definitely empowered to do so with Huhi in his back pocket, as Huhi going to be going for the locket, potentially, from the looks of things. Does have the steel caps. So we'll have to look out to see if it is a locket or redemption start. I think that there is an option to go either again, which, you know, redemption was definitely a game warping item in the last patch, as we do have that locket completed by Huhi. And redemption components for Winsome. So a fight for Disguise here. Having that item advantage is pretty significant. As locket versus redemption, that's a lot of extra value that Huhi could bring to a fight, as Dragon's going to spawn here in 20 seconds.
One of the things that we commented earlier about Estral during their LRN playoff run, and even against Conviction Esports, is that their objective setup was not nearly as disciplined as some of the other teams coming into this tournament. They are at least the first ones into the river so far, but they don't have nearly as secure of a chokehold on it as DSG, all trying to play through the bottom side of the map. Darkwings taking his time to push out mid-wave, which forces Cody to respond. And Estral cannot go for the dragon immediately here because they have to deal with pushing waves.
It's actually really nice that Darkwings got a base in too, because he was sitting on a tier and a catalyst. I think that he's going to have at least Aurora that's going to be working towards evolving now. So I do think that Disguise wanted to get a reset in before they think about this dragon, as we do see the Roa completed by Darkwings. And yeah, I think on the redeploy now, I mean, these first items, Disguise is pretty decently strong. I think fighting this Lucian is quite scary at the moment.
You already see that Estral. It doesn't look like they are the most confident now in retaking control of this river. So they're just going to seed this dragon, which I'm not necessarily a hater of. Estral want to be playing towards that later stages of the game, but Winsome says, let's go for the engage here, right on top of Rahel and Huhi. Ghost gets exhausted. SolidSnake arrives to the party just to get slammed into the wall. Shockwave right on top, and SolidSnake has just given his life for nothing. Disguise, get the dragon, and they get a kill on top of it too.
Yeah, I'm with you, Raaf. I mean, you're kind of putzing around the setup not being there to contest, but that setup was not there to contest, and SolidSnake going over the wall did not look very lower accurate there to Metal Gear Solid as he gets taken down in Castle.
Oh,
okay. He could have gotten an E off. That was actually kind of close. Summit is still sitting on the public execution, but yeah, I'm very surprised at that contest. Cody wasn't set up for it. SolidSnake wasn't set up for it. And the result was that Disguise gets the objective and gets a little bit of change in the back half.
I mean, this has been the biggest criticism for Estral Esports. As impressive the pedigree of these individuals are on this roster, the communication seems always a little unsure and indecisive. If you're already late to that dragon setup, just continue farming your camps and go for your lanes, right? But then as soon as Ghost and Winsome start going for the engage, I wonder if Solid feels like, oh, I guess we're fighting. I guess we have to fight then. And that lack of coordination is what is going to be a major killer for Estral Esports later the game goes on. The fact that Disguise already have a solid advantage into a composition that they want to have the snowball against spells disaster. SolidSnake trying to see if he can find an engage on the Huhi. Cataclysm available, so is Flash. Public execution does find Rahel, but good block by eXyu with a stat-fast presence. Shockwave doesn't clip SolidSnake, but Rahel's still on the chase. But Ghost is able to follow into the backline and slay him where he stands. Castle in the middle of all four members, and Estral find their moment in being able to take down 3 members of Disguise.
That's a massive fight as Summit did not walk bot. He walked mid, and the TP from Castle had got there, but it was late. The damage was already done as Summit found Rahel. They take down that Fed Lucian. That's a very convincing fight in favor of Estral, who just took control of this game.
And this is where Estral can actually find success. If you all 5 commit with the I'm going in ping, everyone understands what that signal is. Everyone, all hands on deck, smork them, and just pray it works out. And when Estral are able to link up in that fashion, then that is the one strength that it seems like they can take to a team like Disguised.
At DSG a bit disconnected there as Darkwings is going to TP in to prevent that first brick. He's got the phase rush. He's going to hunt.
Shockwave not available since he used it in the previous fight, just trying to slow Ghost down. Huhi gets in there. The flash from Ghost still tagged by the Q, but the Glacier Fisher goes wide and Darkwings doesn't have enough damage. Oh no, Isaac doesn't go down, but Ghost survives with a sliver of HP.
Oh, I think the flash or the W in from Huhi was a bit wonky. The Q flash afterwards, I think he could have managed the angles there a little bit better where he might have been able to get it. Just a couple skill shots go wide and they can't pick up Kaisa. That is significant. Ghost lives, can get back out on the map now with the Rage Blade in his inventory. As with that play going down, going sideways, it was the Rift Herald used bot. First brick secured, as now the next neutral objective will also decide feats. As Estral locking that down. Next neutral going to be a pretty big advantage here for either team that secures it, getting feats for the rest of the game.
Even being able to drive the Herald all the way to the mid turret. Unfortunately, it does not get a solid charge, so not that much damage done to the tier 1 in the mid lane. But the fact that Ghost is able to pick up his 2 item spike plus tier 2 boots faster than Rahel's Lucian. Already is giving a strong win condition for Estral to play around. Now ahead of Disguise by 2,000 gold here at 18 minutes.
I mean, they have Flicker Blades on this Lucian. But for me, I mean, this is a game where I think you can get a lot of mileage out of the Flicker Blades, because... but I think your real spike on Lucian kind of comes at 3 items now, if you're going to go that one second, which in a way kind of matches the Kaisa one. And that's something that's going to be interesting, as I do think Kaisa can get a lot of value in this game if you can dive in dogpile with the rest of your team the way that Estral was able to do so well in that last fight here, Raafaa. As Dragon spawning in 30, we have a Mountain Soul on the map. And we'll see if that is the focus, because right now our team's a little bit more closer to the top side, where we're going to have an Otacon spawning on the same timer.
DSG doing the best that they can to set up vision around this side of the map. You already see deep wards in that red quadrant, so they have full information that SolidSnake just took his red buff on his chicken nuggets. Now, the question comes down to how well can DSG play defense for Rahel and Darkwings, because they have a lot of defensive tools available. The fact that Estral were able to bypass half of them is what led to Rahel's demise in that previous fight around the Rift Herald. DSG gonna have to be a lot more tedious when it comes to managing their cooldowns and just making sure that they are able to cover all those flanks, because I know that was something that you pointed out, that DSG not necessarily synced up and ready to receive that play. And because all this attention from DSG on the top side went their way, Estral find a good timer to take this dragon off the map.
Okay, they get that Drake for themselves. Mountain Dragon. Going to be really nice this game, as Pen on a champion like Lucian is delayed. Same with Orianna, going double scaling items here. But Orianna going to be in pretty good shape for this upcoming Otacon fight. It's not a fully evolved Roa, but that Seraphs is completed in the inventory. And Cody definitely still behind compared to his counterpart, if you look at the items in the inventory. So that is the one advantage that is really in the hands of Disguised. And Darkwings is, I think they need a longer fight, need to play around the Alistar cooldowns and around multiple Orianna rotations if they want to win this one. As Otacon has been started, and they got this one at half. With Summit still bot, this might get canceled.
I mean,
no, he's got TP.
Solid's in the mid lane. Winsome's going to have to try to do something, but Keeper's Verdict already punched him out. TP's coming in. It's way too late. Estral are going to arrive just to see the Otacon die. That's a teleport wasted from Summit, unfortunately, and for Disguise, that's a big boon to have in the mid game.
All right, so, I mean, the last play we saw go Estral's way. They played the dive well. They found the team fight. They get that one. Disguise, then, their response is just better team play. As these guys, as a group of 5, that was a really nice Otacon call. I think, you know, we could talk about whether or not they could have used Castle TP or Keeper's Verdict, but this is a high-stakes game. That's close on a knife's edge. Otacon is theirs. That's a lot of flowers that went their way, and you can look at the experience. I think they kind of needed that, as now the XP is a lot more even across the board, picking up a pretty decent chunk of flowers there. So we'll see now if Disguise gets that first kill in a fight, that Otacon gives you that boon with that elimination. And Disguised, I mean, now it's just going to be the next dragon. They have a little bit more time to farm. Dangerous to give that time over to an Ambessa, over to a Kaisa. But I don't think Ghost can reach 3 items before the next dragon spawn. And Summit's not going to complete another one. So I actually think this is going to be okay for Disguise. Like, this is going to be the time where you kind of level out the game. And I think the next fight you really want. Because it's pre-3-item Kaisa, which is deadly.
And even though they're still 2,000 gold down, a majority of that advantage is on Ghost Kaisa. He has Flash and Ghost available for this fight, so he's going to be a little safer in trying to navigate this team fight scenario from DSG. But if they're able to isolate him, if they're able to burst him down, suddenly that major gold advantage is not even something that you worry about for the remainder of the fight for DSG. Right now, it's all about what are the steps taken to ensure that you have the proper objective setup. Right now, Darkwings is going to be taking to the bot lane, trying to make sure that he can match the push of Cody, having the bot lane push out mid-wave. And then if Huhi and eXyu can link up and get some of that deep aggressive vision into the blue quadrant jungle of Estral.
Baron's in a minute 20, but I think that both teams are going to look at Dragon before. Baron just at that time going to be a little bit too risky, and neither team's at a soul where they can afford to, you know, really play around it with a Dragon. Probably I'll be like, all right, you have to commit to that side of the map. We could see Disguise drop this one, but again, as long as Ghost is not on that 3-item mark, I think a fight is the right call. I think that you need to take a fight now. As Disguise, it looks like it's going to be a Black Cleaver coming out of Rahel maybe last year with that pickaxe and
oh yeah
that Kindle gem. That's going to be interesting. Haven't seen something like that on Lucian in a long time. Definitely decreases the damage that's going to be pumped out overall, but I still think this is a big, if not one of the biggest spikes for him, especially given the 3rd item he's going. As Disguise now a minute 10. All summoner spells available pretty much on both sides, minus the TPs, which Disguise has an advantage, and this is going to be a tense one. It's a Thrall with a little bit of an advantage coming in, but keep in mind, I think the last fight went so one-sided because Summit was able to find Rahel with that public execution. That's not going to happen every fight.
DSG definitely going to be a bit more aware of the tools that Estral have available and will be more conscious about how they receive these fights. The Baron has spawned, but as you called out, the clear focus is for this Mountain Dragon coming up in the next 30 seconds. And because both Summit and Castle don't have teleport up quite yet, you see that the top wave is going to be left alone for the time being. Both top laners resuming their control on the bottom side of the map. eXyu taking a base right now.
He's got dead mans.
Understandable. Second item spike. It might
late.
cede control of Estral. Yeah, that's my concern. And now
it's okay. They were catching bot, so yeah, you can see Summit's going to catch this wave. I mean, it's either a give or they're going to try and draw the line and retake. They're going to pull him to the Baron. Oh. Yeah, they're going to pull him to the Baron. I think it's the only way they can pull him around the map. We'll see if Estral is able to solo someone, but they have a ward down on the Baron right now.
Okay, the only way that
Estral is kind of stuck in the middle of 2 plays. They're not going to go for this fight.
I mean, look at this. Summit and Ghost know that they can just solo Dragon with the 2 of them by themselves, so this is a great response from Estral. We talked about how are Estral going to be able to clean up their coordination and find these responses when it comes to macro play and communicating with the rest of their teammates. Great find by Estral and being able to deflect Disguise bait with the Baron pull, but eXyu trying to see if he can find Winsome here. Pops the ultimate.
That could be enough to Baron. That could be enough just to start Baron. Castle has TP now. Ghost is going to fire off. At least one Void Seeker at it. But no Baron start. And it's just a win for Estral. And I got to say, that's a pretty big win. Again, Ghost is going to have 3 items now for the rest of the game. I really felt like that would have been a timer where before Kaisa gets that humongous 3-item spike that Ghost is about to pick up in that Nashor's Tooth. Finding a fight before that spike, I value. And I don't think it's worth having your jungler go back to complete an item to give up that control or that potential for a fight. Maybe they just didn't want it overall, but man, I see a Lucian complete a Black Cleaver and a Kaisa complete a Nashor's. I would have much rather fought before both those items got completed if I'm Disguised with either of those members. So a really big win here for Estral and Ghost as they pick up that Dragon and now Winsome. Keep in mind, he's no ult.
Glacial Fissure knocks him up. There's Summit with the public execution right into Darkwings, but Rahel is safe right now in the backline, but Cody with a beautiful flank up the left side is going to be good, but Rahel just goes forward. That's the only direction that he can go, and he finds success as now Summit is forced to retreat. The rest of Estral thought that they had the flank angle from this Aurora, but it's Disguise that turned the heads of Estral around. Now Summit is just forced to flee, trying to waste as much time from the Toast team as much as possible. Cody deciding whether he wants to bail out his Ambessa or not, but in the end, that Ambessa is going down.
That was a brilliant team fight from Rahel. He did move forward when the engage came in, and the peel from eXyu was much more sound this time around as he caught the Ambessa with the public execution and then was able to find the wallbang, find the steadfast presence where he was forced out of the fight down. They split up the dive from Estral, and Rahel stepped up and won them that fight.
And DSG now have an opportunity while Solid and Summit are still off the map trying to deploy. They can just pull the Baron here.
Yeah, Cody, I mean, he might have to TP before he even completes his base. If he goes for both, this might be too little too late as Castle's going to sneak into the pit late here. And this is Snake. They're going to spot him. This is quite low. We'll see if they want to flip or not. They have a lot of ways to keep Jarvan out of the pit with Poppy.
Solid has one-way trip, no flash available. The Shockwave pulls him in. DSG just turned for the fight and dropped the Baron leash. Redemption comes in, gives a little bit of healing back to SolidSnake. He goes in, doesn't pop the Cataclysm quite yet. And Disguise are going to forfeit the Baron for now.
I mean, that's good discipline still from Disguise. I think by pulling that, got them another kill, right? You'll take that as Disguise. You didn't have the flip. You got a positive out of it. You can fix your lanes, fix your map. I think that was well played, a good sequence from Disguise, who didn't need one after they dropped that Dragon. So at least that team choice to give it, they come back and answer well, as they were able to find a couple of pretty good plays, and that got a lot of gold on Rahel off those fights. If he's able to get an IE now, that's when you can actually start to, again, kind of outpace the Kaisa, because you can be so bursty that you force something like a Seekers and a Zhonya's coming out from Ghost, because now he has to be really wary is if and when he jumps in, if Rahel can get on him, that can be pretty dangerous for a Kaisa, especially if you catch a winner's bite, as that's the CC where it doesn't matter if you can, you know, Ghost run away. That follows you through if you can get the autos down. That's what Lucian's so damn good at.
And the reprieve for Estral going into this next fight, potentially around either Baron or in a minute 24 Mountain Soul, is that Ghost will have both of his summoner spells up, whereas Rahel might not even have Flash available. And with the Seekers that you already mentioned for this Kaisa, that is 3 defensive tools that you will have available for yourself. So I don't think it's going to be in Disguise's interest to try and dive and find Ghost in these fights. It's just continuing to play that defense and peel for this Lucian.
I mean, you don't need to peel Lucian when he just steps forward like that, too. Rahel seemed to
that was pretty crazy.
Well. That was pretty nuts from Rahel, as he was able to step up and slide and glide his way through that fight pretty well. As 40 seconds from this Soul spawning, and it is Soul for his Thrall if they pick it up. So this is a must contest from this guys. No option to drop now. As the last resets come in, it's a pickaxe for Lucian, so not quite the Infinity Edge. Seekers for Ghost is a big luxury item, as he just hit 16 as well. No Cleaver completed yet for Summit, and no GA yet for Castle. But it is Disguised taking this one through mid and trying to connect. Summit does have that flank angle at the bottom. It's Castle's job to go flush him out.
Oh, Cody opens up with Between Worlds. Nice damage onto Rahel, but the culling is able to find SolidSnake. No jungler for Estral, and now it just might be a retreat angle for the Eagles here. Estral still trying to fight through Summit and Winsome, but they can't decide if they want to go forward, if they want to go for the retreat. Public execution to the backline, but the Glacial Fissure slowed down the entire backline of Estral, so no one could follow up on Summit's engage, and now it's a 5v3. Surely this is the Dragon for Disguise.
Great Keeper's verdict from eXyu. Ghost, the member we've talked about the most on this Thrall, was sent out the fight, sent packing before he could get involved, and Disguise that defensive core between the Poppy and the Braum. Way too much for this front line to deal with. As his Thrall were kind of caught one by one. I mean, Summit was trying to save the fight later on. I think the public execution was his only way out, which was in. But no one else could really follow up as Estral kind of split in the last couple of fights. Disguised have held this onto this well as Darkwings.
Flash engage onto Darkwings, but he goes golden. Ghost trying to isolate him. The Shockwave pulls Winsome right on in, and the rest of this guys rally to his rescue. Ghost using everything he has in the tank to try and find a salvage of a play, but he finds Jack squat. Disguise will not continue with the Baron, but they preserve all 5 members on the Rift.
Good defense there by Darkwings. I really like the early Zhonya's to make sure his team could come help him respond to that engage by Winsome, as he tried to take down Darkwings, but Winsome's ex-teammate in eXyu had a little bit something more to say about that, as he brought his team around to make sure that Ghost couldn't find any wins, and Ghost losing a flash for that fight, pretty significant. I mean, that's something that Disguise can really look to punish.
And the perfect reaction of every Estral fan watching that fight was summarized in Ghost's cam, as Cody might just go down here, but Rahel taking a lot of damage. Cody tries to finish him off, but it comes at the cost of SolidSnake using his flash and cataclysm. Cody does go down in the end. At least it's a 1-for-1 for Estral, and slows down tempo from the side of Disguise, as Darkwings now might be in trouble. Still has a flash available. Summit already using the public execution, tries to flash and catch him, but Darkwings breaks his ankles and says, "See why app, buddy." Estral lose out on their top laner now. Maybe it's an angle for Disguise to pull the Baron. It would have to be Darkwings trying to TP, but no Rahel means that that Baron pull is probably not going to happen, and the SolidSnake and Winsome ensuring that they can't get any control in the river.
I think Disguise just has to bring some sanity to the map, because as Thrall, I mean, the only wins they've gotten are when things get a little bit crazy. That was a lot of damage that came out from Cody there onto Rahel that took him down, but Rahel has that Infinity Edge now in his inventory, and good play from Darkwings. That is a flash off of both the carries for Disguise, really just to save the play. So we were talking about how Ghost's flash is now down. You can look for that later on. Darkwings, Rahel, no flash. That is something that you can look to punish if you are Estral. So I still think the defensive core identity from Disguise, it's strong, but they need to make sure that the Poppy, the Braum, the Renekton, they're playing with all the pieces involved to peel off some of this die, because when those pieces get split up, it is Estral at least able to find a couple of wins. I mean, it's not an exact win of the map, but flashes being down to your big carries. If you guys were watching yesterday, that's how Luminosity Gaming were able to bring the game back against the Tigres in that very close game too. So always have to be wary when those carries are flashless. You can always be found by champions like Ambessa, like Jarvan, like Kaisa.
And that puts even a greater burden of responsibility on both eXyu and Huhi.
They got to fight Soul. They don't have him for Soul.
The most experienced players on this roster to try and make sure that they are always protecting their carries, because this composition thrives at its best when it is a 5-man operating as a single unit, as a death ball. And DSG feel confident enough to start pulling the Baron and force Estral to respond.
I don't think this is a pull to finish. I think it's a pull to see if they can create another angle with Poppy or Keeper's Verdict. You can get
turn on
very
Summit,
liberal.
Rahel's already going in onto the Ambessa. Culling comes through. Summit is able to escape barely, but now Cody might be in a world of trouble as he still has flash available. Able to burn through health pools of both Castle and Rahel. No teleport available from DSG. Curious is if Estral want to try and look for a Baron pull of their own, as they have teleport advantage on their top laner.
I know it's nothing in the end, but I actually like that idea a lot from Disguised. Like, you don't have flashes, pull them to you, where they can play over the wall. And then with a Poppy, Orianna, you can be so liberal about how you play around Baron, just because the shields of Poppy are good sustain. And then also that Keeper's Verdict. I mean, you never know. If you hit Jarvan, you knock him out of the pit, and you're fighting with the, one smite versus none. So I do like that from Disguise, just the fact that, they were able to get out of that one as well. I think they played that sequence decent. And by doing that, they were very disciplined in resetting first and keeping their tempo on the map. So they're the first ones that get to this bot river to defend that Soul from going over to the side of Estral. They can put themselves on Soul point with a good take here, as their setup so far has been sound.
Rahel stepping up to Castle on the play there. TP from Darkwings, or Huhi, I should say, as Estral not able to find anything off of the mid play so far. Castle taking a lot of damage, but Culling comes through, damages Winsome and Summit into the back line. Good knock up from Huhi with the ultimate. SolidSnake is deciding whether he wants to go in. Good shockwave finds Snake and Cody into the back line. Summit is the first one to fall, and now DSG have the momentum on their side. They're pushing forward, slam onto Winsome into the wall. Cody could be next, has no flash available, but eXyu is not able to follow up and find the mid laner of Estral. They're going to take this time to guarantee at least the tier 1 turret falling in their favor. And they're going to Baron instead of the Dragon.
Don't give Soul. I don't like this. You're giving a permanent buff in a game like this. I think that's dangerous. They're not going for both. I don't love this. Estral's going to TP down. As Rahel's going to try and rip it. It's their only choice now, but this could easily be taken. There's only going to be a smite on Huhi if he spellbooks it. But yeah, if you're Estral, flip this. Get the permanent buff.
This is the one chance that Estral are being given by Disguise. Could be a mistake that is punished later on to the game. Snake is forced to fight into Darkwings. Castle is there for assistance. The reinforcements are there. Is it enough to take down Snake through the stairs? The shockwave is huge! And Darkwings still able to give enough for the team as Ghost goes down next. Estral! Not even a dragon play will go their way as eXyu arrives in time. Should be able to smite and secure and deny the Soul away from Estral Esports. The public execution will find eXyu. Does he have a Keeper's Verdict on his side? Doesn't look like it. He goes down, but you know what? In the grand scheme of things, Cubby, that's still a big win for Disguise.
Yeah, you can see eXyu with a chuckle and a sigh of relief. I think that he really put his team in a jam by trying to go for that Baron. But you know what? Everything came up toast, buttered up, as they were able to pick up the Baron, the Dragon. They prevent the Soul from going over that permanent buff for Estral they were really looking for. It was a little bit scary, but what would it be like without giving Toast a little bit of a heart attack over here on the side of Disguise?
And now, Cubby, we find Disguise at nearly 5,000 gold ahead of Estral at 38 minutes into the game. Both teams on Mountain Soul Point. I don't know if the game should extend that long, but given the fact that DSG have not been able to find at least enough of a win to crack open the base yet, it's going to have to depend on how good their Baron play is for the next couple of minutes.
Still, I mean, if you're an Estral fan, I don't think you've been given much reason to have hope in the ability to team fight later on. We've seen multiple fights where Ghost has just not been able to get involved, Raafaa. And that has been the big difference maker, because we kept on hyping up, building up this 3-item Kaisa. And so far, it hasn't led to anything, as Winsome's now just going to get picked off.
Oh, no. I mean, the Unchained, the flash for the Pulverize, it doesn't get much done here. Summon now isolated against 4 members. Castle doing everything he can to make sure the Estral cannot follow up on the engage. And just like that, Matt, DSG, enough times they're able to prove that their coordination is better in this first game of the series. Estral now down, backs against the wall, as they are doing everything they can to try and defend the remnants of their base from falling, but DSG should have everything cut out for them. Beautiful flash follow-up from eXyu, finds Ghost and knocks him up with the steadfast presence. Ghost forced to flash away, able to survive, and now Cody's in trouble as Rahel continues to push the game forward, dashing in and gunning down Cody. Estral down to only 1 member to defend the base, but I don't think it's going to be enough. DSG wrapping up game 1 in our best of 5.
You know, outside of that Grub Rift Herald fight, like that topside fight, that was really the only big oopsie that Disguised made. I think giving away that potential angle for the Dragon Soul was a bit scary, but in the end, I mean, Disguised, they dug deep, they held together, and they made sure that, you know, they found their scaling aspect later on. They found the team fights they wanted to later on. And the story of Estral just being a little bit split as a team, not being able to put the pieces together all the time in these fights, it was Disguised that were much more consistent and cohesive as a group of 5, as a single unit, than Estral. That was the big difference in that game.
And I like how you mentioned the one time where Estral did find an advantage against Disguise, because I think that was a good litmus test for the Toast Squad as well. Because after that fight, whether it was in comms or they just all unanimously decided that, hey guys, let's make sure that Rahel is always protected. Let's group up as 5 when we go for these objective setups, so that we have all of our defensive tools available to block and stuff the engages, because that really is Estral's only win condition at that point, because it's a super dot position trying to enable Ghost for success. As unfortunately, I'm still solo. We can't get Cubby's camera on. I don't know what's happening, Cubby. You might have to change your camera, buddy. Maybe it's
Yeah.
I'm hoping that your voice is still coming through. That should be the case. Otherwise, it would just look like I'm talking to myself. But you know what? We're going to take a short break and a quick cooldown, as well as the teams. When we come back, it's going to be game 2 on your screen.